All right, well, I'll get started. I'm probably the first person in this room because this is the first time I'm ever doing this. But I really wanted to welcome everybody a little bit into my process. I'm not always posting on social media. I try to do it as much as possible, but I thought I would kind of take people a little bit into my studio, share some of my old pieces and some new ones, like this one that's behind me. I finished this one a couple of weeks ago. It was actually made on some old 1974 New York Times newspaper that was then resined in. But I think, this one in particular has kind of resonated with me and has been on my mind for quite a while because there's so much history that we have, and I think all of us, especially here with social media, we're kind of inundated with a lot of information and news, and I think one thing that we always miss out on is, at least for me personally, is a lot of time. And so I do think that time is really one of the ultimate currencies. This piece is a very important one because I've been hanging on to this newspaper for a while. I had originally used it in one of my art shows that I had done in Hollywood, and I had a whole installation process, and it was kind of from Nixon's impeachment, which I thought was kind of fun. One character that's starting to reoccur in a lot of my paintings is the timekeeper, and I feel like he's a little bit of a mixture of me, my Smiley character, and a little bit of the two dogs that I've had over the years. Of course, my dog River and Blue. For a number of years, I had a lot of trouble trying to figure out exactly how to paint, women, but I kind of feel like this whole interaction of time and energy is something that, I've been pretty passionate about over the years. I think some of these special details is a piece that I'm kind of really excited about. Originally, I was just going to, release it at an art show, but I thought it would be special to share it with you here today. I'm going to move along a little bit, and then obviously as people start populating, I will obviously maybe come back to these and give a little bit more information. And then obviously if anybody has any questions about any of the pieces, drop me a DM, send me a text, email me. I'm always happy to converse and talk about this. But really, I just wanted to kind of demystify a little bit of my creative process and, share a little bit of myself, not just in these snippets or photos and things, and just really be who I am, which is, me. One of the other pieces that I really wanted to share here today, I think it's not done yet, but it's very close, because sometimes, people ask, how long does it take to finish a piece? Sometimes it's not always that evident. I'm always working on 15 to 20 different things at once, sometimes a little bit less. But it's like, you jump on one, you get an idea for another. I think a lot of artists and even non-artists kind of understand that element of, I think there's artistry in pretty much everything that we do. This one in particular is really special. So I did want to start with it because it's really introducing the first time that I feel super confident in terms of having a character that builds out of something that's been with me forever. I think as we start going through some of these pieces today, I'm going to share, some of the early pieces of what I had drawn, in childhood and where these have sort of evolved. I know, over the years of doing shows and things like that, I've had a lot of different characterizations. Your work looks like Basquiat. It's like Warhol. Yes, of course, we always take, inspiration from other artists. Picasso is another one that I love. I think, Jules Paskin was an artist that I've been long fascinated with. I love Matisse. On the more contemporary side, I love Jeff Koons and Tracy Emin is an artist that I'm really, really passionate about. I just think she has so much raw energy, and I think we get a lot of that inspiration from a lot of people. But I think, as I start off this journey and sharing some of this art with you, I do come from a long lineage of artists. My grandfather was an artist. My grandmother was an artist. My great aunt was an artist. I do actually feel like my great aunt and my actual aunt as well. You know, I think we take inspiration from all of those places. So I think what I would like to do, as this one's still here and as this room is starting to populate, is maybe show where this character kind of originated from, and then move on from there. Obviously, I want this stream to kind of move along as quickly as possible. So I'll actually just show you. I made this next piece. It was actually made as I was leading into doing a show, an exhibit at the Mondrian Hotel in Los Angeles that was curated by the Atelier on Sunset, which is Leah Harper Cohen. I'll show you that piece because it's the first time that I actually humanized my smiley face. In a lot of my older pieces, you'll obviously see a lot of smiley motifs. I would say here's a few soup cans of where I'm kind of showing that case, but here you see it, obviously these types of smiley faces. For me, obviously those are my mode of expression, how I kind of get rid of stress. I really just zone in and do that. One of the other things that you know, I really wanted to do was obviously humanize this character and bring him into a bit more of a storytelling aspect. So I think as I first started this journey as a painter, one of the big things, I obviously came from film and cinema and television, where I do know a lot of those processes of how it works. And I think for me, was learning how to tell a story. And I think I'm starting to learn really of where I want to take certain paintings and how to tell that story. So I think one that I would love to share with you guys today is a little bit of the originator of how my timekeeper came about. And I did call him the timekeeper because aside from being very smiley myself and full of love and energy, he's also got the Nike shoes, just like me. I'm always very, very conscious about time. I'm always playful and energetic and have, you know, I think I just have a lot of ideas that I really want to share, and I constantly feel like I don't have time. I'm usually on time and punctual, but there are certain aspects in my life where that artist brain kind of takes over and 20 minutes turns into 4 hours. But yeah, so I'm going to start by showing you, I'm going to dig out one of the pieces, let you look at this piece for a few moments, and kind of show you a little bit the originators of the timekeeper. Now, before I dive into the timekeeper, I wanted to share, this is actually one of the older pieces that I have in my studio. I'll actually probably share a few others. But this one, obviously very infused with some Banksy symbolism. I'll just hold it up here for you to look at. You know, this really kind of dictates a lot of, sometimes art is never finished. There's always something that kind of continues to build upon. You always can turn back and look at something that you want to change. But I think this one in particular was meaningful to me as an art piece and something that I've basically kept in my studio. You know, I really started painting after forging a friendship with Mr. Brainwash, that I find, you know, an absolutely brilliant artist in what he's also created. But that really, you know, introduced me to the world of Banksy and Shepard Fairey and, you know, Space Invader and one of my dear friends, Punk Me Tender. There's something that I love about street art and the rawness of it. And sometimes, you know, art doesn't have to be super detailed or specific, but really convey a message. And that's something where I kind of teeter in terms of doing things that are very thought out, meticulous, and then I'm going to show you some of the newer pieces that I'm doing now that really I just let myself go and have fun with, because, you know, sometimes we're not always in the same mood. So I'm going to kind of move along here and actually get to the piece that I was sharing, which I knew was going to be the case. So this piece in particular is really important to me for various reasons. I had started working on this character around the times of the LA fires, and I was getting ready to do my art show at the Mondrian. I had about, a little bit of time to prepare for that. I guess like a month and a half. But yeah, one of the things that I wanted to do was take people on a journey. And one thing that I had learned over the years, as far as doing one of my first exhibits over there a couple of years ago, was that the hotel was obviously Alice in Wonderland themed. Now, in terms of not fully taking over that idea of Alice in Wonderland, I wanted to see how I could take people on a journey through Alice in Wonderland, but with my own character. So this guy is obviously Smiley. It's me. It's pretty meaningful to me, and it was really the first time that I've kind of humanized myself in some kind of auto portrait, and he sort of morphed into the timekeeper. And that sort of happened a little bit after the show at the Mondrian. And yeah, for some reason I kind of find him special, and it's something where I'm kind of curious to see where I can take him on an adventure and some of the other characters that I've been kind of building over the years. So I'm now going to move along and share another piece that I find special. Now I'll just forget about everything that I wanted to talk about, just any piece that kind of catches my attention. So this was another piece that was also on display at the Mondrian Hotel. And, my idea behind this piece was really to take the character that I showed you there, my Smiley character, and weave him into, in a sense, kicking us all into the world of Alice in Wonderland in the way that I had it set up in the magic box space. So this was really taking on some of the Mondrian colors and motifs, and it was like kind of a fun, playful thing to work on. One thing, if people do know me, they know that I love the Sunset Strip. So part of the Sunset Strip adventure, none is more full than with Slash. This is a piece that's kind of evolved over the years. One of the things was I really wanted to put myself in a Mondrian jumpsuit and be cool and next to Slash. I think one of my most favorite Sunset Strip memories is before the House of Blues closed down. A friend of mine, Chris Paul, had invited me to a really cool, I think it was a Guitar Hero launch event, and Slash was there, and basically he was within 2 feet playing music for an extended period of time. And that was a pretty iconic moment, especially given growing up, I was like a massive Guns N' Roses fan. I just thought it was like one of the coolest bands in the world. And I just remember as a kid, there was the riots in Montreal and things like that. But they definitely, it's really great to see that Guns N' Roses is back on top. And yeah, that's one element there. I think, I'm going to move this piece out of the way. Maybe we'll come back to it later. But what I really wanted to share was this next piece with you, which I think is kind of special, mainly in terms of the message. And for me, I'm always thinking about ideas and messages and things that I want to share, not only just with myself, but with the world. And I think this one in particular, as far as a message, I think is very important. And it's called Dare to Disrupt. So here we find another version of my timekeeper character, which is, just another version of me, kind of like a crazy devil bandit rabbit of some sorts. I just feel like it's important to have fun. And, this came from a derivative of another piece where there's kind of an emotional pathway to where we're going. And obviously this whole daring to disrupt, part of me feels like it's done, and then I know I might look at it in another couple of weeks, and there's a few things that I really want to do as far as owning up to the words of disruption. So yeah, I did want to share this. This is definitely kind of still a continuous work in progress, but still something that I thought was special to me and something that I wanted to share with you all. So moving right along on this one, we'll actually just bring it a little bit closer to the camera so you can see it. And, you know, essentially, it's really leading to a million paths to your destiny. And I think in order to really do things in your life, you do need disruption. I think disruption is really important. I know I'm pretty regimented in a lot of things that I do, but I do feel like, you know, you're not really pushing the barrier forward if you're not really disrupting. And that's something that I find, you know, very important in my work, even no matter how regimented it is in certain senses, is always finding those moments to really just let loose and remember to have fun. Because as much as my adventures of film have transpired into really just painting all the time, I can't stop it. You know, I do know that just letting loose and having fun and not taking it so seriously is a pretty important element to think of, because I think for me, just doing this live stream in and of itself is a new beginning. It's also just really wanting to share a little bit of who I am as authentically as possible. And yeah, because a lot of you I definitely know, especially on my Facebook where I did announce this in the least obtrusive way possible in hopes that nobody's watching. But yeah, I'm really, really excited to actually go through on this journey and share some of these pieces. One of the things that you notice in this one is obviously some of the patterns. To me, they're almost like brain waves and the different forms of emotions that run out of it. And I think this kind of was something that came out of, it wasn't in any show. It's still a new piece. It's still not one that I'm quite done yet. I'm excited. I think in the next little bit, I know exactly what I'm going to do with it. But it's really monitoring those, each one of these little smiley faces is really a type of emotion of where I'm going. And so for me, it's almost like doing yoga or any other form of physical activity. Because for me, I think sports are really important to keeping like a straight mind and being clear. And so yeah, so this was a piece that I really wanted to share with you all. I'll give you one last look at that. And then we'll keep moving along and sharing some more pieces from the studio. So this next piece is also still a work in progress. I kind of just wanted to share it because it's kind of is starting to encapsulate a lot of things that are obviously thematically repetitive in my work. And there's this idea of the clocks, the clocks, the clocks. Earlier we saw, you know, the timekeeper. I think I have this obsession with time. I think, you know, our time here is a little bit limited, but it's really to make the best of it. So I think part of it is having fun. We know we're always going through different types of vortexes. And I think it's also just to have a little bit of fun. You know, I think we're always constantly inundated with a lot of information from so many different sources and people and families and friends. And I think to kind of keep track of all that, to me, feels like a vortex. And then one thing, especially in these more type of flat pop art pieces, is really for me is a freeze frame of a dream. And, you know, these are often things that kind of come into my head. And a big thing that, you know, in a lot of my pieces is always writing. In this particular one, I'll bring it closer in a little bit. It obviously says, don't think. And I think, you know, that's one of the biggest things sometimes. I think we can think a lot. And then there's the time where you just have to take action and go for it and have as much fun as possible. So this is obviously a work in progress. but something I wanted to share, and also, get some of your comments, because sometimes I think some of the best ideas also come in exchanging ideas with friends from all over the world and being like, what do you think? And sometimes people see something different, or they say, you know what, I really like this piece. What if you went in this direction? Maybe tomorrow I might splatter paint all over it or redraw it in a completely different style. I think as we move through some of these pieces today, you'll see some different styles emerge of what I've been playing with. And then I'm obviously very much looking forward to the next step and going, even pushing some of these things a lot further. So I'll pull this one out for now, since it was a work in progress. Now, this is a piece that I'm actually really excited about. It's really what goes on in my head in the most immediate moments. It's raw, it's fast. There's a lot of emotion here, and it's really the stories that are being told. And I think a lot of it you'll see in some of the pieces that I'm going to be sharing earlier today. There's a bit of an emphasis on these big eyes, and I think there's always this thing that we're always looking, we're lurking, even online, we're scrolling, we're going through stuff. So I feel like this is various parts of my own personality kind of coming out and intertwining with each other. And there's a little bit of that, nervous energy, which is something that, I don't want to share, because I think, some people, it depends. Out of all my friends, you think you've got everything kind of figured out. But I think on the inside, we never know where that next turn is going. And I think that's why this piece in particular is kind of meaningful to me. It's just raw in nature and shows glimpses of not always the happier sides of life, but it's also, there's a lot of happiness and joy in here. Where the yellow is coming through, it's kind of giving life to some of the other works. And, it's meant to kind of take you in on a little bit of a journey. I think as we move along, I'll probably come back and share some of the stories behind this piece. But this one is almost, it is a finished piece. And, one that I actually really love, not only from a thematic standpoint, but also just visually, I like it. In a lot of my work, I'm not always, I think as all artists, we're not always jazzed about everything that we do. All right. Now, as we move along through this stream, here's another piece that I've been working on recently. I'm obviously like a huge fan of pop culture, and I love to have fun and whatnot. And I think this was like something that I did sometime in the last 2 weeks. But it's just really, late at night, you get an idea. I'm so used and focused to working on pieces, obviously these types of works like the soup cans do actually require a lot of detail, a lot of concentration, and there are multiple layers. So, at a certain point, when I really want to let loose, it's just grabbing a brush and really going for it, playing loud music and having fun. I think this kind of categorizes a little bit more of that playful nature and kind of my deep love for pop culture. I love pop icons and music and just really, really cool characters. I feel like I've met a lot in my life, so I've been lucky on that front. And I feel like this sort of style is something that I really, really gravitate towards on a visual sense. And it's also like really, really fun to paint. So that's one element here. I'm going to share another one with you. So this piece, this next piece is a special one. It was one of the centerpieces for my Love, Nostalgia, and the Tempest of My Mind art show that I had at the One Hotel. And I'm going to share this piece with you and then share why it's important to me and also a little bit of why this character is important to me. So this piece obviously wrapped. It was one of the centerpieces in my Love, Nostalgia, and the Tempest of My Mind art exhibit at the One Hotel. And this one in particular, it's called What If Only Love Existed? And I think this is something, ever since I was a kid, there was always some element of me wanting to spread that love and joy. I think, a certain part of that's pretty evident in a lot of my work. And, one particular element here was obviously guns. People love them or hate them or whatever. But I always wondered what a world would look like if we didn't have any bullets, if we can only just shoot hearts and love. And I think that's why this piece in particular is one of my favorite pieces. There was one instance, and it's not really like a whole story that I want to share in its entirety, but it was really interesting when we were doing visits at the One Hotel. Obviously, guests would come in and come see the show, and I remember arriving late one day, and there was a group of 3 people that were there. And then, at the end, one of them had asked, what was the basis behind this piece or what the inspiration was? Because obviously at the root of it, sometimes a lot of my pieces can seem really simple, but, there's obviously a more complex nature behind them. And I obviously went in and explained what my thought process was behind this, of really only wanting guns to shoot out hearts, which I think a lot of us can relate to in this day. And I noticed one of the people that was there that I was discussing with regarding my work got really emotional. And it was the first time, I think, that I had met somebody that had been through the Columbine experience, and it really moved me to have that dialogue and to see how much that kind of affected them. So yeah, to me, I think anything in forms of violence is something that I feel very, very passionate about. And then obviously it's just spreading joy and love. And obviously this character is kind of an amalgamation of me and something that I've been drawing since I was a kid. There's probably some influence of Basquiat in there to a certain degree, but yeah, I mean, the main thing is really spreading love and enjoying it. And I think that's something that I hold dear to my heart. So yeah, this is a piece, as far as a lot of other pieces in my collection. It's obviously an older one now, but something that I've hung on to. But I do actually particularly really like it and have a strong opinion towards it as well. Figure we could switch up the styles a little bit. I think now I'm just pretty much grabbing anything that grabs my attention at any given moment. Obviously, if you guys have any questions that you want to ask me, feel free to drop it into the chat. This is also one of the latest pieces. It's basically, the two go together from the one that I showed you earlier. And it's really about juggling everything as far as life. There's energy there, and it's really just, when everything's kind of coming at you, you got your one eye and you're just zeroed in and focused and going for it. And yeah, it's actually something that I really particularly like. It's a newer piece and more expressive in nature, but also just very freeing to do stuff like this and share it, which I think will lead me more into another piece that was very impactful for me that I'm looking forward to sharing. So this piece was pretty special. I went on a meeting with a friend of mine, Leon, and we were kind of discussing a little bit of my art process and where it was going and what I was doing. And I think one of the things that came out of that conversation was he'd obviously been to some of my shows and seen things online. One thing that I did appreciate was, being like, oh, I think you're a little deeper than this or a little bit deeper than that. And I think it had to do with, some of my more smiley and pop art pieces, which, to me, they have a lot of value and they are a part of me. They're very much what I like to see. I love to spread positivity. I'm a big guy on nostalgia. I think it's important to value some of those things from the past as we move on into the future. So this piece here is called I Ran Out of Time. And I think it was really based off a conversation with my friend and, them just being like, why don't you just paint whatever comes to your mind? Which sometimes, I always have all these ideas and want to carry it out. So maybe from me to other artists out there, not even artists, just anybody in a business setting or in your regular life, is to kind of take chances and do things differently, because you never know where those things sort of spawn from. Because jumping into this style really led into, I'll share it with you now, this sort of piece. They marry themselves together, so there's always some sort of evolution in the process. And to me, this is really somewhat of a self-portrait, as I've sort of been talking about throughout this live stream. Is obviously we started with time is the ultimate currency. And for me, as I've detailed a few times already in the last couple of minutes, time is very important. And I feel like this one is really just juggling. Obviously, we have the heart here, juggling your heart and trying to race in all directions. And there's a lot of travel here. There's a lot of dialogue. There's different energies coming at us from kind of everywhere. And so this one really, really symbolizes, at the moment, running out of time, at the time that I had done this, which was in 2024, actually, just that sense of urgency. And I think, is getting things done and really enjoying the process and going full force in as an artist. Because sometimes you have 1 foot in, 1 foot out. Should I do this? Should I not show this? So this is sort of another characterization of me. We've got the clock also in the eyes, so everything's constantly spinning, which a few people that know me well know that there's always something spinning, or really nothing at all. No, I'm kidding. I think we're always thinking of something. I'm going to keep moving along. We're actually moving faster than I thought, and somewhat of a more enjoyable experience than I was anticipating. I think in sharing that piece, I'll share another piece that hasn't really been exposed, but it was up for a very short time period. Is this little guy. I just find it a really cute character. I love it. Kind of says, the party's over. It's just fun and something to make people smile. I'm kind of bouncing back and forth between, different time periods and shows, but, this piece in particular was one that I had made. It was one of the last pieces that I did for my exhibit at the Mondrian. I actually just started painting over it again, but it's obviously the Mondrian motif on an Yves Saint Laurent skirt. We got Betty Boop. And it's, just me kind of taking her on a stroll. So it's really just plugging myself into a little bit of pop culture fun. I'll jump back into something else here. I'm just changing something in case there are children. I'm going to do something a little bit different. going to cover up a tiny piece of the artwork. Because I did want to share it, and obviously it's available online, but I wanted to make sure, of course, this is accessible for everybody. It's nothing nobody's never seen before, but we'll still keep it PG. This is a piece that was also part of my Montreal exhibit. I did cover her up a little bit because, you know, sometimes obviously kids and stuff are watching. It's a piece that I kind of really love. It's everything that we sort of go through as humans and trying to find out who we are and what we're doing and what our purpose is on this planet. So it was kind of a piece that was important to me and that I wanted to share. So this next piece that I have is one of the last ones that I did at the Mondrian Hotel. The other one, a friend of mine got and was a really cool Lucky Charms soup. Yeah, I thought I would share this one. It kind of encapsulates 22 years of Los Angeles. It's Hollywood Wonderland soup. You know, ever since I was a kid, there was always that dream of Hollywood. And I think, you know, to me, the dream of Hollywood is just really chasing your dreams. And I think you can kind of do that anywhere in the world. It's pretty amazing to see how with modern technology, pretty much anywhere you are, you can do it. But there's obviously a major nostalgic element of, you know, some of the greatest experiences of my life have been here in Los Angeles, and meeting so many different creative people, witnessing their creative process, having loads and loads and loads of fun. And, you know, I think Hollywood and Wonderland, and that's why I kind of wanted to marry those two together, is really taking that Alice in Wonderland theme and bridging it into Hollywood. And that's why, you know, this one in particular was created. And I obviously kind of imprinted my time capsule character in there to make it special. But yeah, I think there's something within some of these soup cans, whenever I do them, is to really capture a moment. And I think that's what it's about in terms of the pop culture is Hollywood and Wonderland have both been pretty impactful in my life and my creativity, especially with all my friends. And, you know, it's basically thanks to Hollywood that I have a majority of my friends. So yeah, this one's particularly meaningful, and I wanted to share it with you guys. And yeah, so we'll move along. So this is obviously the first time that I've done this. I have a few more pieces that I do want to share as we kind of near the end of this stream. I did want to thank you, obviously, for tuning in, for obviously your support in me as an artist. I think that's really important. I think one of the reasons that I am doing this is to obviously, number one, keep expressing myself, take an opportunity to share what this work means to me personally, and obviously share a little bit of where I'm going in my journey. Obviously, I've lived in Los Angeles for a majority of my life. I'm originally obviously from Montreal in Canada. I keep my Canadianisms really, really close to my heart, especially on the Quebec side. C'est sûr que le français, c'est un truc que je tiens très, très fort dans mon cœur. So, you know, those are elements that you do find in a lot of my work. And I think that comes from travels, comes from experiences. I really kind of just use just about everything. So I am going to share near the end, after I show a few of these pieces that I've stretched out, some raw pieces that nobody's ever really seen, or maybe a few very, very select people as I'm, you know, struggling and pounding in to try to figure out what kind of work I want to share with the world, and then see where it goes. So I think one of the big reasons, again, why I've been doing this stream is I'm getting ready to really start expanding and do some really, really special shows, not in the United States. And I really, really look forward to sharing some of that information very soon, because I think we're going to see a little bit of an evolution of my work, where I kind of am going to put everything that I know off to the side and really try to focus on something that really has a bigger impact. I would say try to blend a little bit of some of the work that I've done in my documentary work and really do it on an art level, and hopefully give people a really great, fun experience, but also make you think a little bit. It's okay to think. This is a fun piece. It was actually exhibited in a friend's house, but it was sent to Vegas. I did it rather quickly. I've been to Vegas a couple of times. It's an interesting place. This piece is obviously wrapped up, but I'm going to share it with you anyway. It came back and I never really posted it, but it's really at the root of it. If you see my drawings from when I was 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years old, these were exactly, this is the world that I dream in constantly. So I figured it would be important to share it with you. Who doesn't love Las Vegas? Viva Las Vegas. Sorry for the wrapping, but I'm not in the process of wanting to unwrap it at the moment. But yeah, I just kind of find this piece a little bit funny. It sort of encapsulates my, a little bit of where my brain waves are, which are sometimes a little bit all over the place, but also in another sense, there's some structure. And I think, you know, a lot of these characters that we see, we do find myself in there. And some of these characters that I've been, you know, drawing as a kid find themselves within the painting. So I think there's 2, 3 other pieces that I'm going to share like this. And, you know, this one was just meant to be a really fun adventure. Now that I've done it, now that it's come back, and this is several years ago already, not quite sure when, it might be, yeah, I think it was from 2022. So this piece was 2022. And I was just trying to encapsulate a little bit of Las Vegas. Now I have so many different ideas of what I would like to do in terms of reimagining this world. And I think that's kind of what's exciting about art, is being able to do that and learn from it. And but yeah, I still wanted to share it with you because it's always been buried away in my studio and kind of something that you normally wouldn't see, or that I've never posted online. Because I think, you know, I would say I post 4% of what goes on, number one, in my head or in my art process online, somewhat in a bit of a sacred fashion. But now as I'm, you know, evolving as an artist and finding my voice, I thought it was important to share some of the pieces that have helped form the artist that I am today from where I was in the past. We're going to revert back to actually a piece that I had made specifically also for the Mondrian Hotel for that exhibit. And this one's called Down the Rabbit Hole We Go. And it's a really fun, playful look into Alice in Wonderland. Obviously, forcing myself into the narrative, and it was really just to take people on a journey. We have the funny caterpillar character probably taking us into another dimension, which I thought was important. And really, it was really a mix between me, Hollywood, and Alice in Wonderland. And just, you know, I mean, the main basis of it, and I think that's pretty evident now, a lot of it, I just want to make people smile and for people to be happy. So yeah, I thought this one was turned out in the way that I had anticipated. It still plays along with my, you know, clock motifs and whatnot. But yeah, it was a piece that it's calming in one sense, and also just, again, playing a little bit with telling a story and a narrative. So that was something that I obviously wanted to share with you guys today. So we'll move along from this one. I can also put it here. So this piece is one of the newer pieces that I've made. It is almost done. I might actually be able to hang this up here so you can get a little bit better view of it. This piece comes out of a piece that I made years ago in my Dear Diary art exhibit, and it's obviously one missed call. And I think this is pretty telling. Obviously, a lot of us, we're always on our phones, we're always available and whatnot, but I think sometimes, we obviously need to chase opportunities and go after them, and that also means also being available for when things come in. I think, for me, there's a big line between fame and failure. There's so many people like, I missed that call. Now I think people can text and do things. I think there's kind of a nostalgic element to this, obviously a little play on Mickey Mouse, and I just kind of wanted to play around with that. Obviously, the no caller ID and The Godfather, because I've been pretty heavily influenced by Hollywood. I just thought it was kind of a nod back to the olden days. This is probably something that's going to change a little bit over the next couple of days, but I figured I would just share it with y'all. All right, we're getting into some fun stuff. So this piece here is called All Eyes on Me. I think some of the pieces that I showed you earlier, there's some similarities in terms of thematic elements that you can see, but obviously this one, All Eyes on Me, it's really a feeling that you have when the world is kind of spinning and everything is looking at you from different directions, and you really just need to focus in. I think it's also like just encapsulating that energy and kind of moving forward. Very much an energetic piece. Something that has vibrant colors, and you'll notice that even though a lot of these eyes appear open, they're quite closed, and it's sort of an idea of while all eyes are on you, it's still okay to be whoever you want to be. So I think that's kind of the basis of that piece and something that I wanted to share. This piece was never really exhibited. It was a piece that I was planning on showcasing at one of my last exhibits, maybe last year or so, and it was called Miro Made Me Do It. Obviously, a little bit of an influence of Miro, and then just a little bit of that kinetic energy and funness. And it's really just meant to be a piece that makes you laugh, makes you think, and obviously at the root of this particular series is leading with your heart, which is something that I always try to do and strive for. Sometimes we don't always make it, but in general, we can always try. So this piece definitely had some, personal sentiments on my end in creating it, and the energy that went towards that. Now we'll get into pieces that I don't always post. This one in particular, something that I'm still kind of working on, but I thought would share. And this is a little glimpse again into how my mind works when I'm just sort of free associating. I would almost call it a pencil sketch. This is a character I've been drawing definitely since I'm a kid, kind of imprinted here, but it's also entering different worlds and different portals, and I think it's kind of taking the real, the raw, the cartoon, and taking us on a journey. And written in here is why you, why me. And I think in a lot of my pieces we do see these automatic writings. 99% of the time these things just pop into my head. I usually jot them down. Sometimes I try to avoid doing it for a while. But in most of my art pieces, you'll definitely see some form of written messages or automatic writings, as they're called. And this one in particular, it's an interesting piece, but it really gives you kind of a pretty raw insight into where my mind is. That'll probably lead us into one of the next pieces that I have to share. Also, if you've been watching since the very beginning, thank you so much. We're going to be wrapping up soon, but there's a few other little things that I wanted to share with you before we end this first live stream adventure together. This is actually a piece that's been exhibited a few times, and then I ended up keeping it. And it's really a little bit of a scratch pad of where my mind is yet again. These are free associative thoughts. You have some of these characters that I've really been doing ever since I was a kid. And then you'll see some obviously influences from Banksy in here. I think there's even a little bit of Man Ray is also an artist that I've long been fascinated with and love his work. I think in that same realm of Man Ray, I love Versailles. But one thing that I had learned about Man Ray is some of those photographs that he used to do of patterns of smiley faces and rocks, or just faces in general. And I think some of that kind of trickled out in this piece. This is a way earlier piece and something that I thought was special. So yeah, this is from 2018. So I guess a year and a half after I really started to take art seriously. So it's a nice one to have, and it's called Pecking Order. Maybe I'll get it framed at some point soon. So this one is, probably a little insight to the characters that you would find inside my brain. Just a fun piece that I was working on, not something that I've necessarily posted or whatnot, but just something that I had done for myself as a form of self-expression, and see where it goes, with no real desire of exhibiting it anywhere, but just seeing what kind of discovery I can have in my own work. So I think, it's a little special to me. I have it buried away in my studio, but it kind of encapsulates sort of different modes of feeling. I think we can all feel that way. I've certainly felt this way a lot of times in my life, and probably felt this way. And then, we can kind of find little derivatives of me. So there's, I think, a lot of auto-portraiture where I think, I was like, I don't think I ever do auto-portraits, but that would be a lie. So we'll move along, and I'll showcase some of the last pieces, and then we'll take it from there. So I figured if we're going into the studio, we can look at pieces that I don't always deemed as perfect to be released. But there's something in particular that I somewhat find powerful in a piece like this, is sometimes you can make up whatever you want and whatever you want it to be. And there's always a beginning, a middle, and an end. And I think this one kind of symbolizes it. At first, I just did it because I probably didn't enjoy what was underneath and was planning on doing something else, which a lot of my work does have a lot of layering in terms of discovering where I want that to go. But then this one in particular, I stopped a few years ago, and I kind of left it at that. It's kind of one of my more personal pieces that I just like. So we're taking a deep dive down memory lane. This would probably be on the level of some of my first original pieces, which was my first soup cans. This is kind of one of the first testers. I'm probably planning on redoing a Molson series. This was the first series that I had started in 2015. It was really just trying to figure out what I was doing. I didn't really have any intentions of selling art or exposing. And then it kind of just happened naturally. I think I was living in Los Angeles for quite a while at that point, and then there was some kind of symbolism. I was working on a project called Andy Warhol's Factory People that a dear friend of mine, Catherine O'Sullivan Shore, had written and directed with Patrick Nagel, who, you know, for better all intensive purposes are very close to my heart. But we worked on that project together, which was all about Andy Warhol superstars. And I think that's really where a lot of these soup cans derived from, was meeting some of these original superstars and having dialogues and just being like, why don't I paint them? And for some reason, I can't stop doing them, and they've sort of taken on a life of their own. So this is actually one of the originals. Probably will never get rid of that one. But I would not rule out not having a new Molson upgraded soup can in the near future. Trying to get a little selective here to keep this live stream a little bit on the shorter end of the side. I was going to originally do it only for 30 minutes. This is a piece that I never really exposed, but I had it kind of buried away in the last show that I was going to show. But it just says lead with your heart. And I think that's kind of at the basis of everything that I do is leading with your heart. And I kind of find her pretty special. It's kind of in a vortex of a world where everything can be chaotic. As long as you lead with your heart, things will maybe work out. So I kind of wish that upon everybody. And yeah, I think if you're always genuine and true to yourself and to others, that good things happen. So that's something that I thought was special to share. We're getting near the end now. So this piece here, also wrapped, is called Decoding Your Emotions. This was part of a series that I had started, and a few of the pieces from this series are actually at two of my dear friends, Mark and Joni Houston, have a place called Level 8 downtown. They also have some of the best places in Los Angeles. I've certainly spent a lot of my time and enjoying all the friendships that I have here in Los Angeles at their venues that they've created. I think they're kind of artists in their own sense. When they had asked me to showcase some pieces when they were building this amazing thing. I mean, Level 8 is an amazing achievement by any standard in the nightlife and food industry. They've got great restaurants, bars. It's pretty fabulous. And, you know, sometimes we take certain moments for granted. And, you know, there's only so much art and wall space in places. And I think, you know, sometimes you don't realize the journey that you're going. But this piece in particular does go with the three other pieces that are part of that series, and it's really decoding your emotions. And you know, there's so many different kind of emotions that we have. I know a lot of us also, when we're texting, we have those emojis that can mean a million words. If you're happy or sad or whatever it is. I like that they actually included the finger. I actually don't use it that much. I'm actually curious if we did a poll. What's your most used emoji? I know mine is the upside down smiley face and also the tongue. I think those are mine. So what are yours? Yeah, this was a piece that I really wanted to share. There's some kind of computerized element to it in terms of the coding. I was never like the greatest at math. It's kind of the beginnings of something that I have an idea of on a much bigger scale and a little bit more chaotic, but I thought it was something that I would love to share with you guys. Guess we can get into some soup cans that are still available or sitting around in my studio. This one, ketamine, a little bit self-explanatory, but I kind of thought there was a big infusion of that over the last few years. So I figured it definitely lends itself into the pop culture element. I know when I had first announced this live stream, I said, I've been working on some new Smiley cans. Obviously, Pac-Man is one that I'm really, really excited about. And I kind of like the direction of where I'm going with these soup cans. And it's also trying to have a little bit of a bigger dialogue about it, but it's also bring people back to that nostalgic element. It's actually the other night I ended up going and playing Pac-Man in an arcade in the Valley, and it was a really, really fun way to get rid of stress and just not think about all of the chaos that's sort of happening around the world or in your life. So yeah, those are kind of things of what I always want with the soup cans and even Smiley pills. There's no really connotation towards any type of pill taking. It's really pills of happiness, but sometimes to be happy, there's sadness. There's so many different various modes of energy. So those are things that I'm always trying to capture, even if it's in a simplistic manner. Obviously, Centipede was a piece that I really wanted to share. I was not really part of the Atari generation, but I certainly heard about it. I do remember vaguely as a child seeing it being played and over the years, but now as we get to discover everything with the internet, Centipede's a pretty cool game. I did share this one obviously in my announcement post, but I am a big fan of Batman. I love the Batman movies. I love the comic books. I do still have a pretty big comic book collection. So it's only natural that that these influence, the next generation of these Smiley Soup cans. And, I always find these really, really interesting because whether you're a close friend or somebody that I've met before, the soup cans really symbolize, number one, I think it's a first degree connection as far as support for me as an artist. It's a great entry point as just an artistic acquisition for your house. But yeah, overall, they really encapsulate who I am as a person, and it's somebody that has a deep love for all humans, for pop culture, and fun, because I think we can't not have enough fun in life. So I think that was something that that I like to share with these. I never really thought I would continuously do them because obviously the first time that I ever showcased any of the Smiley Soup cans, as you can see here, the wood was reminiscent. I obviously wanted to do a whole ode to Andy Warhol, so I ended up hand painting, and these are obviously all hand painted, 32 original soup cans. I have 3 left of the original ones. These are obviously the new ones. I'll show you the ones that I have left. I'll just pop these here just so you can have them in the background. But I can even, hang them up if they fit, which they don't. Keep these here. I'll share because I have them. Yeah, out of the 32 soup cans, I have 3 left that I kept for myself, blessed and kinky, which stay kinky, y'all. But yeah, that particular collection, when I did do it, it was mainly to have something for people to take photos in front of and have a good time. I wasn't expecting it to be like something that was sold. I also don't think I knew what I was doing at that time. So I think that, it lends itself to a little bit of fun. I'm going to showcase another piece here. All right. So this piece in particular, yeah, as we can see it here. So this piece is called Happily Ever After World. And again, I think as you've seen in kind of a thematic element of where my sort of transitions in my art style go, this is really at the root of it who I am as most structured. And one reason why I find this Happily Ever After World piece special was in the middle of working on it and figuring out where it was going and what I was doing. I was looking at some of my old grandfather's cartoon paintings, which I think in later streams I'll probably share some of that. The other thing was including one of his characters in there. And, you know, I think as a kid, I never saw any of his cartoon characters. He really, really did fine portraiture and landscapes, and then found this whole other element, which is where I think a lot of my characters came from. There's kind of like that derivative of seeing this character that's sort of blended in with all the guys and girls that I've created over the years. So I think this one is particularly special, sort of honoring the past, going into the future, and sort of having fun with your dreams and keeping things smiley. And obviously, like with a lot of my pieces that I've talked about today, challenge the metaphor. Just little words to kind of catch your attention and go with it. I do always have, in a lot of my pieces, character very much a little bit of a self-portrait, and obviously the Book of Dreams character that's repetitive in a lot of pieces. I know in this one in particular, I inaugurated 2 new characters, and it was Monsieur and Madame Croissant. And I remember being outside of the Pompidou Center in Paris and just kind of painting or drawing whatever was coming to my mind. I know this fire hydrant guy over here came out of that experience, and a few of the other characters here. So I think there's some of Paris in this one. And as you can see with a lot of my other work, you always find symbolisms of hearts in various places, because I think, you know, at the root of it, it's the most important element that we have. I think I maybe have 1 or 2 last pieces to share. This last piece that was at the Mondrian Hotel I thought was kind of special was this one. And it was obviously in reference to Alice in Wonderland. It was kind of a funny piece. I loved it. I love telling weird and funny stories. And so that kind of concludes a lot of the finished pieces that have been lounging around my studio that haven't been picked up yet, but also I did share some of the works in progress. Maybe on the next round I can share some of the new stuff that I'm working on. But maybe I can also share some of the pieces to show you where they are in raw form before I stretch them out. This one in particular is from not too long ago. As we can see, this character right here, as with a lot of my other characters, they come to life in different ways. So yeah, I just thought that that was kind of, you know, you'll always see some of these characters pop up in different manners. So this is like kind of whenever I'm drawing, I tend to draw on the floor a lot, but this is kind of one of the newer ones that I've been working on. It might stay wrapped up for months or years or who knows what. I can also share a little bit. This one I did while visiting my family in Canada. And yeah, wherever I go, I can't really stop. So usually I have forgotten these tubes in the airport. But yeah, it really kind of takes you through my sort of imaginary world. And you can kind of see some of these characters here, obviously popping back up into existence. This is a very big piece. I think I'll just share it with you as a last resort. Yeah, this is just really kind of what this is all about, dreaming big. Just finding these fun characters in a smiley world. I'm not going to unroll the whole thing because I don't want to ruin the surprise for shows or whatnot. I don't know if those will see the light of day. But I think to wrap things up here today, I thought I would share this last piece with you. It's called If It Made You Smile. And, you know, yeah, I think this one's a little bit self-explanatory. And I think if this live stream has any thematic element to it, is if it made you smile, then it was worth it. That's it. So thank you for joining me on this first ever, for me, live stream and virtual studio visit. I hope you got a little bit more insight into my work, into how I think. I'm sure there's so many other things that I could tackle or talk about. I probably have at least 100 more pieces that I could show, but I wanted to show things that really had some strong markers for me on a personal level, and go about it from there. But yeah, thank you all. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you for your support and your friendship, and I look forward to dialoguing with y'all at some point in the near future. Bye.